Holcim, a world leader in building materials. We have our roots here in Switzerland, where people have worked with the challenges of nature for centuries. We build for the future, so that our children's children can enjoy life in the beauty of landscapes like the Alps. We proudly present this real-life story of strength, performance and passion. Centuries ago, the Alps were insurmountable. Too tall, too rugged, too steep to cross. Over time, people with ingenuity and courage overcame this great natural barrier. Climbers are still attracted to these jagged peaks, none more treacherous than the north face of the Eiger. The Eiger has cast a long shadow over the life of author and climber John Harlan. With his wife Adele and his daughter Sienna, John Harlan has returned to his boyhood home, Switzerland.
Oh no! Ah, how could that be? Alright.
Even as a boy, I loved the way these hillsides were sculpted by farmers. Things have changed in 40 years, but respect for the natural world is still a way of life here. My main goal for this trip is to pass that spirit of respect on to my daughter, Sienna.
Where is Switzerland?
Well, there's this area here, sort of the heart of the Alps, really, right in the center of Europe.
How long are the Alps?
Well, they're about 700 miles in a big arc stretching from southern France all the way to Slovenia.
Wow.
Europe sits between Africa and Asia, but the continents didn't always look like this. Way back in time, the continuously shifting plates of the Earth's surface pushed the continent of Africa slowly north until it rammed into Europe. The Earth's crust buckled, pushing the ocean floor almost 3 miles high, holding bands of rock like an accordion. I love the Alps. It speaks to my soul, to my heart, to be in this environment.
Alps are unique. Almost 20 million people live here, in close harmony with nature.
You have villages, little villages, in just the most improbable of locations. It's just amazing that you can even get there at all, let alone have an entire village way up high on the mountainside. It gives me such a warm sense of being in a culture, a real mountain culture. As the editor of the American Alpine Journal, I love to write and to climb, and I've actually climbed now on 4 continents and done a lot of new routes. When I was 9, we lived in the Swiss village of Les Uns above Lake Geneva. Dad and I loved to ski together and climb together. He had a real reverence for the mountains, and he definitely passed that on to me. I have very fond memories of our times together. He was my hero. But when I was 9 years old, Dad's obsession with the Eiger took over our lives. The Eiger is the most dangerous mountain in Europe, and Dad was determined to put up the hardest route ever attempted. My life would never be the same.
The north face of the Eiger has claimed its 27th victim. To the dead climber, American John Harlan, the funeral service was solemnly observed at Lysin, mourned now by his wife, mother, and 2 children.
I was 9 when it happened. I clearly remember Mom came into the room crying and told us. I just couldn't quite believe it. It was 40 years ago that Dad died. Ever since, I've had unfinished business with the Eiger. Now the time feels right to confront my fears and honor my father.
Before he leaves Switzerland, John hopes to climb the north face of the Eiger at last and free himself from its shadow.
I promised Adele that I would not attempt the Eiger without the very best climbers at my side, Robert and Daniela Jasper. Robert has made it all the way up the north face of the Eiger a dozen times. His wife Daniela is also a superb climber.
Yeah, John was asking where could we do some training climbs together, and I said, what about our backyard?
The Jaspers and I both want to develop a sixth sense about each other and how we climb. They are every bit as interested in safety as I am.
When we are on the same rope with John on the Eiger, we need to know if we can trust each other with our lives.
Warm days make the Eiger too risky to climb. While we waited for cool weather, I wanted to show Sienna more of the things that I love about Switzerland. The mountain passes were once impossible to cross most of the year. Because of the Alps, the Italian region of Switzerland developed separately from the French and German parts.
We're in the southeast tip of Switzerland. the region of Ticino, where the people speak Italian.
The Versasca Dam in Ticino is over 200 meters high. If you stacked 9 of these dams on top of each other, they'd be as tall as the north face of the Eiger.
I knew when I married John that he wasn't afraid of living life on the edge. That's who he is.
This is catching a little bit here.
It's all right. And remember to enjoy it, because this is probably the last time you'll ever do it.
Okay.
Love you.
Moving through the sky like a tiger, defying the laws of gravity. I'm burning through the sky, yeah. 200 degrees, that's why they call me Mr. Fahrenheit. I'm traveling at the speed of light. I wanna make a supersonic man out of you. Don't stop me now. Have a good time. Don't stop me yes, now. Have a good time. I don't want to stop at all.
In the Alps, the tremendous influx of people has raised a new challenge. How to inhabit these mountains in a way that protects their future.
The most famous pass across the Alps.
I met up with Professor Bruno Messerli for his lively insights on the Alps. Bruno Messerli studies how we as a species interact with these mountains. To connect with the outside world, they've had to tunnel through massive mountains, bridge valleys, and carve roads into huge cliffs. Switzerland looks small on the map, but the mountains give it a large vertical dimension.
I mean, this exercise begins several thousand years ago. People came in here and had to adapt to this fantastic landscape.
So would the same farmer have land in the bottom of the valley and also up in the hill?
Yes, it was not easy. But look here, you see in the lower valley bottom, they could plow, they had barley, they had the cows, the cattle. Then come the steep slope here up, and then there must be the forest. Then is again grazing land, and then begins the stony part, then comes the snow and the ice. It is fantastic to have in a vertical structure all these different belts.
And what kind of different types of rocks are there in the Alps?
Well, there's limestone, which is sedimentary. There's some crystalline rocks of different types, including granite.
And how tall are the Alps?
Well, they go up to 15,000 feet or more.
Tectonic uplift is still pushing the Alps higher, but they are also being torn down by other forces. As the rock freezes and thaws, it eventually cracks. Gravity and erosion do the rest. Many of the rocks that slide off these peaks are carted away to the valleys by the great alpine glaciers. Today, as the earth warms, glaciers melt faster than they can be replenished. At this rate, even the largest alpine glaciers will shrink to small fragments by the end of this century.
To drive this point home, Professor Messerli showed me the Aletsch Glacier, which has retreated 2 miles since 1850.
It is the longest glacier of the Alps, not only of Switzerland, yes. And it is longer than all the glaciers around Mount Everest. 23 kilometers here, you know.
And if the glacier was all the way down here 150 years ago, and now it's up there, is it retreating even faster now than it was then?
Yes, we are worried about.
Glaciers have always gone through cycles. Each time they advanced, glaciers helped reshape the Alps.
Years like that, but they are always changing even today. But look, if we have something like
Today, throughout the Alps, the Ice Age has left its mark. Although glaciers never touched this ridge, they carved away its base on both sides. Pulled down by gravity and erosion, that rock fell off, leaving this Fraser's edge.
Glaciers can carve away the base of a mountain, leaving a single jagged peak called a horn. The most famous such peak is the Matterhorn.
A million years ago, the mountain was broader. But during the Ice Age, each time the glaciers advanced, they kept grinding downhill, scooping out, and gradually whittling away its base. Each receding glacier left steeper cliffs below and precarious unsupported rock above, which collapsed under its own weight. Throughout the Ice Age, the cycle was repeated until all that was left was a sharp, towering horn of rock.
At 14,730 feet, this dramatic icon straddles the border between Italy and Switzerland.
Dad always promised that he and I would climb the Matterhorn together. We never got the chance, but I've climbed it twice.
So this is where Whymper stayed, huh?
Edward Whymper was the first to climb the Matterhorn in 1865, setting out from the village of Zermatt.
Italians were going up and he had to race them to the top, and so he set off from here for the final successful climb.
The Matterhorn was the last great unclimbed mountain in the Alps. For their first attempt, they kept trying from the Italian side because it looks easier from a distance, but in fact the way the geology of the mountain goes, the holds are much more in-cut and easier to use on the Swiss side.
Whymper's team made it to the top, the first ever to stand on this summit. But on the descent, the rope broke. Only Whymper and two of his companions survived. Many thousands of people come to the Matterhorn each winter for one thing: snow.
I study snow to understand the fundamental processes that can lead to large avalanches.
My friend Chris Pielmeyer is a scientist at a Swiss Institute for Avalanche Research.
There goes the avalanche. It's not just skiers who are at risk. In one recent winter in the Alps, avalanches killed 42 people in villages. By redirecting the wind flow, these small and innovative structures keep snowdrifts from accumulating. You can't stop the full force of a big avalanche once it gets sliding. You actually have to prevent it from sliding in the first place. The snowpack consists of many layers held in place by millions of tiny little bonds between the snow crystals.
By probing the density of each layer, Chris can test the stability of the snowpack.
The crystals constantly change, so one layer that was stable could become very weak, and a weak layer could become strong in time.
That weak joint can later fail and produce an avalanche.
We trigger avalanches to get information. In the slide path we have geophones. We measure the pressure, the speed. You only know how powerful it is when you have once measured it.
In 1966, this lonely old hotel at the foot of the Eiger was the base of operations for Dad's final attempt. A journalist stood here on the terrace and watched through a telescope as Dad fell to his death. Now, this hotel will be our home for a week or a month, whatever it takes. The Eiger has the worst weather in the Alps. The north face of the Eiger plummets non-stop for over a mile, the tallest and the most treacherous wall of rock in Europe. It's a huge, steep face of loose and crumbling limestone, a shooting gallery of falling rock. Even a pebble can kill you. When it snows, avalanches can knock you off the wall. But still, we plan to climb when it's cold, because there's less rockfall. The ice and snow lock the loose rock into place. The summit of the Eiger stands just over 13,000 feet high. Dad was the first American ever to climb the north face of the Eiger. 4 years later, he set out to climb the Eiger again, this time by a radical new route, straight up the face. When yet another blizzard hit, Dad and his two teammates were trapped halfway up the mountain at a place called the Death Bivouac. Their ropes were suffering from wear and tear. For nearly 2 weeks, they lived in a snow cave. When they got a lull in the storm, they decided to make a final push for the summit. Dad was going up a rope. They noticed that the ropes were frayed, but his teammate thought the rope would hold. Dad's teammates completed the climb. They named it in his honor, the John Harlan route. I intend to come back from every climb. There's no summit, there's no climb that's worth dying for me.
John's very tense about this climb. It's a dangerous face. Is it worth the risk? John cares very much that his daughter grows up with him.
Stay. Oh, there.
The key to climbing safely is being methodical.
I think it's something that John needs to do. I trust that it's important enough to risk what he has. He knows what he has, and he would only do something like this if it were that important to him. He's going to have to work very hard to shut out all the thoughts that will undoubtedly be creeping through his mind. And I think when he reaches the point where his father fell, that is going to be a very emotional moment for him.
Be careful. Everything will be fine. We waited for perfect conditions. That would be great.
I love you.
Bye. Okay.
Starting the climb was almost like entering a trance. I was entering this world of a dream that I'd had for so many years, and now I was finally living it. I've waited 40 years to set foot on the Eiger, but for the next 3 days, I need to put my emotions on hold and try to treat this like any other climb. Robert was the first person to tell me that the Eiger was his favorite mountain, a place that was a part of his heart and soul. And the only other person I knew who felt that way was my father.
There's a little diagonal that goes to the right. And Daddy's wearing a yellow jacket.
I don't see.
Well, keep looking a little closer.
The Eiger is the tallest face in the Alps, and it's over a mile high, and when you start up it, you see it's a mile high. This is a 3-day climb. My back is already really hurting me.
When I got to the bivouac and opened my pack, I found a note from my ladies.
Dearest John, embrace this experience. Think one step at a time and remember that we are with you at all times. I love you, Adele. I love you too, Adele. Sienna. Sienna wrote love, 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 love all over this. So much.
We'll have a safe night and climb well tomorrow.
When you climb in the Eiger North Face, you hear the cowbells and the noises from down there, but in the same time you feel to be very far away.
I'll be lying on one side the whole night, but I'll be tied in so I don't have to worry about rolling off. Starting out before dawn is spooky. Robert traversed off to the left and I came down off the ledge, and then when Daniela was coming down, her legs are much shorter and she couldn't reach the foothold. And there was no protection in.
Es geht schon, jetzt kommt.
I was stuck on the bivouac ledge, and I knew if I would jump and miss the foothold, I would tumble down about 80 feet before the rope could catch me.
Leucht mal runter, dann siehst du schon, wo du mit den Füßen hin musst. Geht schon, vorsichtig einfach.
She managed to make it down okay, fortunately. But it was an ominous start to the day.
When you climb the Eiger, I think you cannot avoid thinking about the people who died in the war, especially if you come to certain places where you know there were big tragedies and you simply have to think about it. In a way, this also makes the place very special. It's very alive.
A scary thing about the Eiger is that the rock is often loose, and so if you fall and the protection doesn't hold, then you can fall a very long ways. Even a dangerous climb can be made safer if you just approach it intelligently. We need to secure the ropes to the cliff, so as I go up, I look for good cracks for anchors where the rock is solid enough. But the rock is coated in ice, so even with the axes, it's hard to get a solid grip.
I followed John through all the difficult sections, and I just happened to be looking through the scope at the moment when he slipped, and naturally my heart stopped.
The weather on the Eiger changes very fast. Really crazy weather. Down in the valley you have clear sunshine, and up there you have a snowstorm.
I have already thought a number of times about my father and the fact that he came up this route. And I can't dwell on that too much while I'm climbing, but we'll see what happens overnight. I have a long night coming up.
What is this thing that builds our dreams, yet slips away from us?
Dad was bivouacked on a ledge like this when he scribbled a final note to us. We're hoping to make the top in a few days, but we're being very safe, so don't worry. Love you all very, very much. Dad. After we passed the spot where Dad's rope had broken, I glanced back. I'd been trying to get past that place for 40 years. I flung my grief and fear off the mountain and kept going. here so high on the face, we're beyond the point of no return. It's terrifying in a way, because you know you can't go back down, only up. The weight of 40 years is lifted. But I was emotionally exhausted, and so was Daniela.
Oh, God. Come on. Wow. Great.
For me, this climb has helped heal an old wound. But instead of focusing on my connection with Dad, like I expected, I felt much closer to my wife and daughter, who stood by me while I did what I had to do.
See you really soon, okay? I love you too. By the time I got to the summit, my back pain was getting much worse.
Ride the wild wind.
Robert persuaded me to get lifted off the mountain. This was no easy decision for me.
Ride the wild wind.
I really wanted to keep going, but I knew he was right.
Gonna ride the wild wind into the roads.
When I landed in the field and I saw my kids, I just felt so great. It was so good to have them back.
Often the way down is much more dangerous than the way up because you are really tired and so you must think about every step.
Just a little jolt of adrenaline there at the very end. struggle that I went through on the Eiger was worth it because it has allowed me to connect Siena with this love for the mountains that I felt as a boy. But I have one more stop to make, back to the town of Les Uns, where I grew up. Dad was buried here in a snowstorm. When I was here before, it had always been a very sad experience, but this time I felt like I'd been freed in many ways. Like I'd done the climb and honored my father and moved on. It was almost a liberating experience to be here.
These mountains attract strong people. They always have. The Alps embrace us, just as they welcomed the first settlers who looked up at these peaks many centuries ago and said to themselves, "We belong here."
Stop me now.